Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Yasser Arafat, a controversial icon of the Palestinian national movement. Yasser Arafat, born Mohammed Abdel Rahman Abdel Raouf al-Qudwa al-Husseini on August 24, 1929, stands as one of the most influential and polarizing political figures of the 20th century. As the longtime leader of the Palestinian national movement, Arafat became a global symbol of the Palestinian struggle for statehood, navigating a complex landscape of conflict, diplomacy, and shifting regional politics. Early life and rise to activism. Arafat spent his childhood between Cairo, Jerusalem, and Gaza, shaping a political identity rooted in the emerging Arab nationalist movements of the mid-20th century. While studying engineering at Cairo University, he became active in political groups promoting Palestinian independence. These formative years laid the groundwork for a lifetime dedicated to the Palestinian cause. Formation of Fatah and the PLO leadership. In 1959, Arafat co-founded Fatah, a political and paramilitary organization aimed at liberating Palestine. By the late 1960s, Fatah rose to dominate the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, and in 1969, Arafat was elected chairman of the PLO. Under his leadership, the PLO transformed into a broad coalition representing millions of Palestinians in exile and within the occupied territories. Despite criticism for Fatah's early armed operations, Arafat's growing international presence established the Palestinian issue on the global diplomatic stage. A global symbol and diplomatic force, Arafat's appearance at the United Nations in 1974, wearing his trademark keffiyeh and military uniform, marked a turning point. His speech, famously declaring, "Do not let the olive branch fall from my hand," reflected his evolving strategy, a blend of resistance and diplomacy. Throughout the 1980s, Arafat attempted to pivot the PLO toward political negotiation. His 1988 announcement accepting UN Resolution 242 and recognizing Israel's right to exist opened the path to peace talks. The Oslo Accords and the Nobel Peace Prize. The most pivotal moment in Arafat's political career came with the Oslo Accords in 1993, negotiated secretly in Norway. The agreement established limited Palestinian self-rule and initiated the Palestinian Authority, PA, with Arafat as its president in 1996. For his role in these negotiations, Arafat, alongside Yitzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres, received the 1994 Nobel Peace Prize. The handshake between Arafat and Rabin on the White House lawn became one of the most iconic images of the late 20th century. Challenges, setbacks, and renewed conflict. Despite the early optimism, the peace process suffered repeated setbacks. Issues such as settlements, borders, and the status of Jerusalem remained unresolved. The eruption of the Second Intifada in 2000 severely damaged the peace framework and led to heightened tensions between Arafat and the Israeli government. From 2002 onward, Arafat was confined to his Ramallah compound by Israeli forces, accused of supporting violence, claims he denied. His isolation reflected both the collapse of peace efforts and deep divisions within Palestinian politics. Death and enduring legacy. Arafat fell ill in late 2004 and died on November 11, 2004, in Paris under circumstances that remain debated. His burial in Ramallah drew massive crowds and marked the end of an era. Arafat's legacy is complex and deeply contested for many Palestinians. He remains a heroic figure who embodied their national identity and aspirations for sovereignty. For many Israelis and critics, he is remembered as an obstructionist or a figure tied to violence. For historians, Arafat stands as a pivotal leader whose life mirrored the struggles, hopes, and contradictions of the Palestinian national movement. Conclusion: Yasser Arafat's life was defined by his relentless pursuit of Palestinian self-determination. Whether viewed through the lens of heroism or controversy, his impact on Middle Eastern politics is undeniable. As a symbol, negotiator, and revolutionary, Arafat shaped decades of conflict and dialogue, leaving an imprint that continues to influence the region's future. Expanded article: Yasser Arafat, architect of a nation without a state. Early revolutionary strategy, armed struggle and identity building in the 1960s and 1970s. Arafat's strategy for Palestinian liberation centered around armed struggle, which he viewed as both a practical tactic and a symbolic tool. Guerrilla operations launched by Fatah were intended not only to pressure Israel militarily but also to assert Palestinian agency after decades of displacement. Under Arafat's leadership, the PLO established bases in Jordan, then Lebanon, built a structured organization with political, social, and military wings, created institutions, schools, social programs, and media outlets to strengthen a unified Palestinian identity in exile. The PLO's presence in Jordan led to growing tensions with the Jordanian monarchy, culminating in the 1970 conflict known as Black September, after which the PLO relocated to Lebanon. This period marked a shift in how Arab governments viewed the PLO, not only as a liberation movement but as a political force capable of influencing regional stability. Lebanon, regional alliances, and international controversy. Arafat's years in Lebanon, 1970 to 1982, saw both expansion and crisis. The PLO became embroiled in the Lebanese civil war and clashed with various militias, while also conducting operations against Israel from southern Lebanon. During this period, Arafat navigated a complex network of alliances, including support from various Arab regimes, ties with the Soviet Union during the Cold War, diplomatic outreach to non-aligned nations. However, the PLO's militarized presence in Lebanon, and accusations of involvement in international attacks, made Arafat a highly contentious figure on the global stage. The watershed moment came in 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon. After a brutal siege of Beirut, Arafat and the PLO leadership were evacuated to Tunisia. Though forced farther from the West Bank and Gaza, Arafat preserved the PLO's political relevance through diplomacy, diplomatic evolution, and the push toward recognition. By the late 1980s, Arafat recognized that military strategy alone could not achieve Palestinian statehood. The First Intifada, 1987 to 1993, a grassroots uprising in the occupied territories, shifted global attention and gave the PLO new legitimacy as the leader of the Palestinian people. In a landmark moment in 1988, Arafat formally accepted UN Security Council Resolution 242, recognized Israel's right to exist, declared an independent state of Palestine, symbolic but politically meaningful. This transformation from revolutionary leader to statesman was crucial in paving the way for dialogue with the United States and Europe. The Oslo years: hope, triumph, and disillusionment. The Oslo Accords marked the pinnacle of Arafat's political career. Negotiated secretly and announced publicly in 1993, Oslo created the Palestinian Authority, PA, and gave Palestinians limited self-governance in parts of the West Bank and Gaza. Achievements of Arafat under Oslo: return from exile after nearly 12 years, establishment of Palestinian police and administrative institutions, international recognition and support, Nobel Peace Prize, 1994, alongside Rabin and Peres. Challenges and failures: despite initial optimism, Oslo faltered because key final status issues, Jerusalem, refugees, Borders were left unresolved. Israeli settlement expansion continued. Mutual distrust deepened. Extremist violence on both sides undermined confidence. Internal Palestinian divisions grew. Arafat faced criticism from Palestinians who felt the agreement gave too much, and from Israelis who felt he did too little to stop violence. The Second Intifada and final isolation. By 2000, the peace process collapsed after failed negotiations at Camp David. The eruption of the Second Intifada created a dramatically more violent climate. Israel, under leaders like Ariel Sharon, accused Arafat of supporting militant groups. While Arafat denied operational involvement, he also refused to fully confront factions like Hamas and Islamic Jihad, fearing civil war among Palestinians. In 2002, the Israeli army besieged Arafat's Ramallah headquarters, confining him to a few rooms for nearly 3 years. By then, his political authority was weakened. Corruption within the Palestinian Authority damaged his standing. International patience with the peace process had dwindled. Yet among Palestinians, his symbolic status remained largely intact. Mysterious final illness and death. Arafat's sudden illness in October 2004 remains the subject of speculation. He was flown to France for treatment but died on November 11, 2004. No definitive cause was publicly confirmed, leading to theories ranging from natural disease to poisoning, disputed and unresolved. He was buried in Ramallah, his grave draped with the Palestinian flag. Plans to inter him in Jerusalem were prevented due to political realities. A complicated legacy. Yasser Arafat's legacy is multidimensional. Positive legacy. Father of modern Palestinian nationalism, symbol of resistance and identity, leader who brought the Palestinian cause to the world stage, architect of the first Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement, charismatic figure with unmatched ability to unify disparate factions, criticisms, use of armed struggle and tactics that harmed civilians, ineffective governance and allegations of corruption. Within the PA, ambivalence toward militant groups during the Second Intifada, missed opportunities in negotiations, difficulty transitioning from guerrilla leader to modern statesman, historical importance. Regardless of perspective, Arafat remains one of the most consequential Middle Eastern leaders of the last century. His life encapsulated the Palestinian experience, from displacement after 1948 to the quest for sovereignty. Conclusion. Yasser Arafat's story is not merely the biography of a leader, it is the narrative of a people struggling for identity, homeland, and recognition. His legacy continues to shape Palestinian politics, Israeli-Palestinian relations, and global diplomacy. To understand the modern Middle East, one must understand Arafat, his vision, contradictions, failures, and enduring influence. Further expanded article, Yasser Arafat, the complexity behind the icon. Arafat's leadership style, pragmatic, symbolic, and centralized. Yasser Arafat's leadership was unmistakably personal and highly centralized. His decision-making process was known for being incremental. He avoided rapid strategic shifts, preferring small moves toward long-term goals. Ambiguous, he often sent mixed signals to different audiences, which some saw as diplomatic flexibility and others as evasiveness. Highly symbolic, he used clothing, like his keffiyeh arranged in the shape of historic Palestine, phrases, and gestures as political statements. Arafat conducted much of his diplomacy through personal relationships, cultivating trust with foreign leaders, Arab allies, and global diplomats. At the same time, he often pitted Palestinian factions against each other to avoid internal collapse, an approach that created a fragile political system. Master of political survival throughout his career, Arafat survived moments that might have ended the political lives of other leaders: the 1967 Six-Day War, which devastated the Arab world but increased support for Fatah; the 1970 expulsion from Jordan, which could have shattered the PLO but instead reorganized it abroad; the 1982 expulsion from Lebanon, which dispersed the PLO but led to its diplomatic revival; internal rebellions within the PLO, including the 1983 Fatah split; years of exile in Tunisia, far from the territories he sought to lead. Observers often remark that Arafat possessed an uncanny ability to remain at the center of Palestinian politics regardless of circumstances. This resilience made him a symbol of national continuity. The man behind the image. Personal traits and habits. Arafat was known for his distinctive and persistent habits, which became part of his mystique: sleepless work habits. He routinely stayed awake until early morning, conducting meetings deep into the night. Frugal personal lifestyle. Despite accusations of financial mismanagement within the PA, many who knew him described him as personally ascetic. Charismatic presence. His speeches, gestures, and emotional expressions resonated with ordinary Palestinians. Unpredictability. Even his closest advisors sometimes did not know his exact plans. His signature look, military uniform, pistol, keffiyeh, was calculated to reinforce his identity as a revolutionary leader. Even when engaged in diplomacy, Arafat and the Arab world. Arafat's relationship with Arab governments was complicated. He needed their support but rejected being controlled by them. Key dynamics included Egypt, a long and evolving alliance. Cairo often played mediator between Arafat and Israel. Jordan, relations ruptured after Black September but later normalized. Lebanon, a mix of cooperation and conflict, particularly during the Civil War. Gulf states, supportive financially but increasingly frustrated by the PLO's independence. Arafat's decision to back Iraq during the 1990–91 Gulf War proved costly, leading Kuwait and other Gulf states to cut funding and expel thousands of Palestinians living there. This weakened the PLO politically and financially just before the Oslo process began. Relationship with the United States and the West. Arafat had a complex relationship with the US and Europe. Described as a terrorist leader during the Cold War era, later became a partner in the Oslo peace process, eventually criticized again during the Second Intifada for Washington. Arafat was both a problem and the only possible solution, as he uniquely commanded widespread legitimacy among Palestinians. Arafat's role in shaping Palestinian identity. Perhaps his greatest legacy is how he helped crystallize modern Palestinian national identity. Through the PLO, Arafat promoted the idea of Palestinians as a unified people, not just refugees, a political culture centered on nationhood, cultural symbols, flags, and narratives, institutions like schools, charities, and media outlets. His ability to articulate Palestinian aspirations gave him immense moral authority, even when his leadership was criticized. Internal criticism and controversies within Palestinian society. Arafat faced criticism on multiple fronts. 1. Governance and corruption. The Palestinian Authority suffered from accusations of mismanagement of funds, lack of transparency, consolidation of power among loyalists. Arafat's governing style, informal, personal, fragmented, often resulted in competing security forces and ministries. 2. Handling of the peace process. Some Palestinians believed he conceded too much at Oslo without gaining enough in return. Others felt he failed to capitalize on opportunities for a final agreement. 3. Relations with Islamist groups. Arafat attempted to incorporate or restrain Hamas and Islamic Jihad instead of dismantling them. This balancing act fueled criticism from both Israel and secular Palestinians. Global perception, hero, villain, or diplomatic partner internationally, Arafat evoked strong, divergent views. To many in the global south, he was a freedom fighter resisting colonialism. To many Israelis, he was linked with terrorism and broken promises. To Europe, he was a necessary interlocutor for any hope of peace. To millions of Palestinians, he was the father of their national struggle, flawed but irreplaceable. His ability to command such contradictory perceptions underscores the complexity of his political life. Arafat after death. Symbolism and politics. After his death, Arafat's image remained powerful. Posters of him are common in West Bank streets. His keffiyeh remains a symbol of Palestinian resistance. Political factions still invoke his legacy. Debates continue about whether he could have achieved peace had circumstances been different. The division between Fatah, his movement, and Hamas after 2007 further elevated Arafat's memory as a time when Palestinian leadership was at least symbolically unified. Final reflections. Yasser Arafat is a figure who defies simple categorization. He was a revolutionary and a diplomat, a unifying symbol and a divisive political operator, a global icon and a regional enigma, a man of deep flaws but immense historical importance. Understanding Arafat means understanding the wider story of the Middle East, where identity, territory, history, and politics collide. His life reflects the Palestinian journey, full of hope, struggle, compromise, tragedy, and enduring.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.